All right, thanks Daniel for the intro. Folks, thanks so much for your time here today. We really appreciate your making the time and spending the entire hour with us, and we do appreciate you guys joining us, and we hope that we will give you very exciting and valuable content. Which you would be able to take and get the value out of it, very, very quickly, basically right after this webinar. I'm gonna ask Daniel I see there's a lot of people joining, people, okay, it's time, and then people dialing in, and it was 50 people a minute ago. Now it's almost 80 people. So I guess we will let everyone join. Click on that quick survey. But I guess, statistically, we can already say that, 30% waterfall and pure agile is 0. And the rest of the crowd is basically 70%. Using both Agile and Waterfall. Wow. I mean, I was expecting at least some Agile, pure Agile folks to join, and well, apparently we're looking at 30 to 70 ratio between Waterfall and the mix between Waterfall and Agile. So pure Agile, 0%. Wow. That's impressive. All right, then I'm gonna start presenting. I guess we can. Oh, there's 1%. There's someone doing Agile. Well, I'd like to hear that person after we're done with all the questions, and that would be interesting to see. Talk to that guy.
All right, so I'm about to take the poll away. Everyone, you have 5 seconds to go ahead and put your last submissions in.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, the Agile answer was withdrawn. Anyway, let me start presenting. All right, so creating a holistic view when blending Waterfall and Agile. So that's the topic for today. Again, thank you so much for taking time to join us here, and we will make your time worthwhile, and let's get going. So, quick agenda overview. Of Agile and Waterfall data model, mapping and aggregation within the data model. I mean, it sounds kind of techy and complicated. Don't worry about that. We'll break it down so you'll understand, what's what I'm really talking about. A TFS, Visual Studio business case, the Jira business case. So these two particularly are, that we're looking as, top kind of top on the market to do the business case of integration between the Waterfall and Agile, and we'll talk about that. Integrated data model reporting. That's something that came up on some of the questions from you guys. And I do appreciate your submitting your questions, so I can actually take some time and prepare to answer them. So we'll talk about how can we report on that integrated data model using Agile and Waterfall together. And we'll talk about conclusion and talk about questions, and hopefully have nice content. So a few words about us. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. You can get this information from the website, from internet. I'm not going to spend time on this. We're purely, Microsoft Gold PPM partner. We work with project management systems with Microsoft, and that's what we do. Okay. Project Online, Project Server, MS Project. We're project MVPs. Etc., of good things. So anyway, a few things about the some of the surveys, some of the research data. 95% of the responders of the organizations are basically using Agile. So Agile is everywhere, and then you have more detailed information about 50%. Less than half of the teams are Agile. Do they use Agile or in a greater detail, in a greater scale, or lesser scale, or whatever scale? But regardless of what the organization is, they are practicing Agile in some degree. Some of them are more extensively, some of them are not, and that's the research data that's provided by version 1 annual report. So version 1, one of the Agile tools. All right. Some of the reasons for adopting Agile. I guess the crowd here on this call today does not need to be convinced in the value of practicing Agile, but here are some top reasons why you should do that. Accelerate product delivery, enhance ability to manage changing priorities, increase productivity, increase quality, etc., etc. So there's reasons for adopting Agile. The top 2 reasons for adopting Agile has been to accelerate product delivery 62%. So tips for success for scaling Agile. So this is where we're trying to kind of scale the Agile a little bit so we can create more enterprise flavor of it. So we can actually put this on an enterprise track. And there are different tips for success of how to achieve that. Consistent processes and practices, Agile consultants, executive sponsorship, internal Agile support teams, and the one I'm highlighting here is implementation of a common tool across teams. And I heard a lot of questions about, how do we combine different tools together, and how do we manage Agile and Waterfall, and how do we approach this? And basically, we should always look at this from the implementation of a common tool across teams. So even this common tool is actually could be broken down into different tools, then from the PMO perspective, you got to look at this from the common, overarching umbrella of these tools, and only that will give you a full picture of what's going on with your projects, Agile projects, or Agile pieces of those projects within bigger projects or programs. Interestingly enough, on the right side on this slide, you can see that 60% of the people are using Microsoft Excel. Microsoft Excel to manage Agile projects. And Atlassian Jira, 51%, Microsoft Project, 33%. So this is the data that's been provided by completely, third party to us. I mean, we're completely not, and it didn't have any weight on any of these results provided by version 1. So in fact, version 1 is number 4 on this scale. So which means that everyone who worked on Excel, they can tell that Excel spreadsheet hell may get you in trouble very, very quickly. So this is one of the reasons. It's one of the reasons why we need to kind of put more enterprise data modeling in the way we approach Agile and Waterfall. So Waterfall data model. I'm going to quickly go through this. It should be familiar, should be very, very straightforward. So we start from the left and going from the left to right, the way we write it, at least in English. So global project portfolio, right? This is the global view of the entire project portfolio. Then we break it down to project portfolios, right? We have different departments, divisions, they have their own portfolios, and those organizations, they have their programs or projects. So we moved from portfolios, moved to programs, and then moved to project. And within the project can be broken down into detailed tasks, scope, deliverables, issues, risk, etc., etc., etc. Also, kind of in parallel, but not necessarily in parallel, you can look at the time tracking, calendars, schedules, and the resources. I mean, this is probably a very, very simplistic way of showing that, but I wanted to kind of, for the purpose of the understanding the data model of the waterfall and understanding of the data model of the agile, and how can we actually, look at it together, and the ways how we can look at it together. This is going to be, even more than enough for us to comprehend at this point. So that's the waterfall data model, and if you have any questions about that, feel free to interrupt. So agile data model, and I think I purposely made it to appear all at once, but the agile data model is kind of looking like this. And let me start talking quickly about each of these points. So in blue, right, on the top, it's a project. So it's a project. Everything starts with the project. Arguably, you may actually say it may not start with the project. Sometimes it starts with a theme or epic. So I would agree that this first two levels may actually flip. So you may have an epic first and then the project, or you may have a theme first and then the epic and then the project. So basically, there's no standard nomenclature of how you would structure these levels. But as soon as you start going further down from epics to things like features, versions, releases, and then further down you start decomposing that and start putting those stories, right, the backlog and stories, and then throwing them into a certain sprints. So this is where it's becoming more or less standardized data model. So I would look at the agile data model from the bottom up. So I would really look at it from the there's some more details that are not in this data model. Again, for the purpose of this webinar, we don't need to get to the details of tasks and bugs and blocks and things like that. Understanding that each of these items are rolling up to the story. Stories would roll up to sprints. Sprints would roll up to either features or versions or releases, or all of them at the same time. And then that would roll up to epics or themes, and then that would roll up to projects or portfolios. So that's basically how it breaks down as far as Agile data model. I hear a lot of conversations are going on. I'm not going to get distracted purposely, but I hear there's a lot of people reacting to what I'm just saying. So I'm looking forward to get any questions about these two data models. All right. So of course, if you think you can do a thing, or you think you cannot do a thing, you're right. So you can't do a thing, or it's quoted by Henry Ford. What I'm really trying to get to this thing is that if you think you can do more, it becomes reality as soon as it crosses your mind. So as soon as you think that how do we combine these two together, this is now reality. This is what we're living in, and how do we do this, and why we should do this. So let's quickly look at capabilities. So when we talk about how do we combine waterfall, how we combine agile, what are we really talking about? We're really talking about the PMO and different types of capabilities that each of these tools, each of these methodologies of managing projects will give us. So the PPM capabilities, project portfolio visibility, capital planning, the resource management. Arguably, it's a challenge for any of the agile environments to do to do the resource management or schedule management, portfolio analysis, resource capacity planning. So these are fundamentals of the kind of waterfall side of the thing. So PPM capabilities. And on the right side, we can see that agile capabilities, which is accelerate product delivery, manage changing priorities, enhance productivity, increase quality, all those things that we saw in the earlier slides from the research, all these capabilities are very, very much in place for agile methodology. So what do we do? And you probably wonder, what are those stripes on the top over here? So this is actually one person. So smile and let's look at this from the one one organism, from the one two eyes, and one is blinking, and you're basically looking in one direction. So you gotta combine these two capabilities and make it look one way. Okay. All right. I thought for some reason I thought it's gonna be kind of fun to put it like this. So anyway, let's move on. So now, how do we do this, right? And now you can see, right, there's a PMO data model, classic, waterfall, PPM data model. Again, the same thing, right? Global project portfolio, programs, projects, tasks, etc., etc. And I put this simplistic the first option. So PMO agile data model, right? Have projects, epics, features, and underneath we would have all the backlog and stuff like that. So the linking the programs to projects. So if you have clear understanding in front of you, what is it your waterfall data model is, and you have a clear understanding what is your agile data model is. So here now, as soon as you have this definition, either on the whiteboard or on the Visio or on a napkin or anywhere, I mean, if you clearly understand the data model in both these two worlds that some people say they're not, connectable, you can't connect them. Untrue. It is untrue. We see, and in fact, 70%, you confirmed that. This very survey from this very webinar just confirmed that the 70% of people are using both Waterfall and Agile. So there is some connection, and you probably do it either manually or through spreadsheets or through, one slide or two slides for the same project. You somehow do this already. Let me add a couple more links here, just to kind of make the life a little bit more easier to manage. Okay, so here's the thing, that these arrows are showing the different ways that you're capable of connecting your waterfall classic PPM model to the agile model. And in this case, it could be program to a project, and this could be a project to a project, could be project to epic, or even further, one project to multiple epics, or project to a feature or to version, or the options I didn't want to put too much lines over here, so it would be too messy to look at. But you basically, there's first 2-3 layers of the hierarchy on the agile. On the agile side, you still can preserve the hierarchy, a consistent hierarchy underneath, by knowing exactly which story at which sprint belongs to which version or which release, and then therefore you would understand which epic. So if you can build your PPM environment where you would have portfolios linked at a certain level with your agile objects like epics, themes, features, versions, or releases. Okay. From the data modeling perspective, this is basically technically very easy to accomplish. From the process perspective, you gotta even though it's agile and kind of fluid and not fixed, it's got to be agile process in place which you would follow, and then by following that process and the process from the PPM capital planning side, then you can put those links together. In fact, you should have one link, not all of them, right? I mean, I just showed the examples of how you can link it, but you really need to have one link from one side to another. Okay, and the directions of these errors are actually bidirectional, so that's. I do believe that this slide explains the really the core between the data model and understanding how we can link this to, and then actually that may drive some of the processes that would be as a result of this particular data mapping. So integrated data PMO model. So we have so basically this is a resulted picture from the previous slide, showing that in this particular case we build the portfolio of programs and projects, and within the project we have those agile components that may consist of projects or epics or stories, etc., etc. So that's the integrated data model. Okay. All right. So business case of the organization designed the agile solution to keep projects in sync with project and PPM. So it's basically a one-to-one project on your PPM, on your waterfall. There's one project in there, so there's one project on your agile. So you decide, okay, that's how I want to do this, right? And you say, I'm going to create each project on my either Jira or version 1 or Trello or whatever I'm using for agile. I'm going to create one-to-one relationship between projects in my waterfall PPM system and the project in my agile system. So and within the projects there can be elements like let me show you the picture. So projects to projects within the project have epics, sprints, stories, very much aligned with the way you would do with the TFS or Jira. So you have concept of projects in GFS, you have concept of projects in Jira, you have concept of projects in Pivotal Track, you have concept of projects in almost any other agile tool. So these two are linked like this, and then you'll be able to report and aggregate the information about agile attributes, about how many sprints, how many stories within this sprint completed versus in progress, and you can pull the report that is in project, pull some actuals, some financials to understand, the overall information, overall comprehensive, holistic view on your project by looking at project information and agile, waterfall type of information and agile type of information. And this is how it would, link all other projects. So you would have project 1, project 2, project 3, and then they have each of them. They have each project on the agile side. Okay. So that was one of the business cases. So and let me get to another one. Another one that's actually more interesting. The organization designs an agile solution to keep epics in sync with projects in PPM solutions. So considering they have multiple projects in your agile, and it could be because of the legacy of the years from now someone created agile account and they decided, okay, let's do agile in Jira, or let's do agile in version 1 or something like that, and then decided to create all kinds of different projects. And at some point someone said, okay, let's put at least epics in order. Let's organize our epics in a way so we can combine them and put them into one project on our PPM system, where we need to control some actuals, we need to control the budget, we need to control some vendors, SOWs, etc., etc. So basically, at this point, we're linking to epics, right? For new approved projects, there will be a new epic created, and everything under an epic. Let me show you this. Yeah. So projects linked to epics, and under epics, right, you would be able to see sprints, stories. Each sprint or a story would also have all their tags, all their attributes associating them to certain versions or features or things like that. At this point, the project on the Agile side would not participate in a data model. I mean, it may participate, but it's not going to be able to influence or add any additional information to the data model, supplying additional value to the information about the actual epic and what's in the epic, which is sprints and stories and tasks and bugs and features and etc. So that's another thing. And I think I have another version of this. Yeah. So you can do the same. Another business case is how it is the linking the project to version. So in an organization, let's say you have a big application that you create the project every time they need to release a new version, right? And then you say, okay, the version 1.2, that's a new project. Okay, let's put a new project. Let's put some budgets. Let's put some timelines for this project on the PPM side, and let's start doing some story. Let's create some stories. Let's put some backlog together. Let's do the assessment. Let's put some story points, etc. The full Agile process. But you really want to tie that to versions or releases, etc. Right? So you can create these links from projects to versions. And I think I know at least two organizations that are doing the projects by versions, and that's why this business case is actually up here. Okay, all right. I actually running a little bit ahead of time because I do have a lot of questions, and I do want to be on time, and I'm hearing a lot of bips going on, and I'm envisioning going to be quite a bit of a questions. Thanks. There's another sample. One project could be linked to multiple versions. I mean, the point is that the number of combinations of how you can organize the data model from PPM, from the waterfall project by project strict, layout of your portfolio, how you can build this data model and link the projects to different things on the Agile side. You can link it to different versions. You can link it to different projects. You can link it to different epics, themes, etc., etc. The thing is that on the Agile side, it's got to be a compliant data model and hierarchy of objects, so you can actually roll up the information up to those versions in this case, or releases. And by the way, you can see that some of these versions and some of these releases may actually come from the same project. You may have one project, you can have multiple versions, and within those multiple versions, you may have different sprints and stories. So some of these versions are rolling up to one single project. So one project on the PPM may actually be linked to a multiple projects on Agile, and those links could be to a particular version or release. So I hope I'm not explaining it in a way it could be easily understood. Anyway, we'll have questions and answers, so we may come back to that. All right, output holistic reporting data set. So basically, as a result, I'm gonna back quickly. As a result of this particular different types of links between these things. Let's say we settled on one, on this particular way of doing it. We're going to tie projects to versions. Okay, let's say we agreed on that, and we build these links. We build some quick integration between PPM and Agile. Everything is working. People work on Agile tools, and they may not even know that their work is being actually linked to a particular project from the project management perspective. So let's say that they work and they keep generating a lot of data, right? They generate the data, and this data is being resulted in something like this. So this is basically a table, right? And that's telling us that the version PPM project name, and you can see that this project is tied to 1, 2, 3 different versions. And by the way, this project being approved for 2,500 hours, and we actually have burned already 2,300 hours, and that's according to timesheets, right? So far this is PPM, well, except the versions, but the second, the third, and the fourth column, these are coming from PPM, right? From the pure waterfall planning perspective. And then the other column, a number of stories completed, 45 stories completed. That's something that came from the Agile. And then you can see that the stories, and they're broken down by versions. You can see for the version 1.1, we have 45%, for the version 1.2, 25%, and for the version 1.3, we have 15%. Total story points, complete story points, actual versus plan, like how many stories we have completed comparing to what we should have been completed by now. So as far as our timelines on our schedule, which is coming from the PPM, it's telling us that by this time, where we're here right now, the June 23rd, 2016, right? By this time, we should have completed, 100% of what we planned, and now it's telling us we actually completed 87% of what we should have completed by now, by today's date, which means that we're 13. We're 13%. We're 13%. We need to catch up, right? At 13%, we're late. We need to, 13% something that we need to add, accelerate to actually make our deadlines. That's why it's siren is in red right now, meaning that the version 1.1 is in jeopardy, right? So this is an example how we can combine these two valuable pieces of information and put it into one data set. And I'm saying that this is just an example. Imagine how cool or crazy data sets or crazy, nice-looking dashboards you can build, having this, two different pieces of information together. It's unlimited opportunities to combine this data and slice and dice it. So, what I want to emphasize here, so basically, Agile environment. This piece of information coming from Agile environment. This piece of information coming from the Microsoft, Microsoft PPM solution, and in this case, because we're primarily and only working with the Microsoft PPM solutions, so that's why we're Microsoft PPM Gold Partner. But to show you the Microsoft, the project server, project online information. Coming from this information. And then this is the aggregated data. It's aggregated data coming from both, coming from Agile and Microsoft. And this is where the 70% of you are interested in getting this particular information in place, combining these two information. So it's sort of a blending this earned value metrics, translating some of the story points calculation, actual story points completed versus story points, total in the backlog, comparing to, putting on the timeline and calculating the earned value based on that, which in this case calculated in terms of story points. Well, in this case, the earned value is a relevant metric, so it's showing you the index of how late we are today. Okay. All right. So yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of like kind of not creating excuses for anything in my life and in the way I live. Yeah, I mean, I live, I work. I mean, I don't even know where the difference is, but my life, my work, my business, the way I treat my clients. I don't make excuses. So how many excuses we can come up with not doing something? You can have an option. One of the favorite is we need to get requirements first, right? And people are saying, well, how do we do that? Uh, so what I'm saying is you need to just start doing it. I mean, just get to action and start doing that. What you can get by connecting these two, Agile and Waterfall and PPM worlds together, teamwork is visible and reportable. Okay, um, so you can understand what teams are doing by letting them do whatever they need to do within their Agile environment, and you can actually report on that, and you can report on that consistently with the way you would report on your basic PPM solution. So easy adoption means that you let people work where they're comfortable working with, whether they're using Jira, they're using Tool Tracker, they're using version 1, they're using Trello, they're using anything. So let them. I mean, if they're using Excel, I mean, you can let them use an Excel. But maybe it's not the most efficient way of using it, but you can let people work what they feel comfortable working with, and then use that information, simply connecting that at one data point, getting this data integrated data model in place. Work anywhere, automate reporting from PPM and Agile. So combining those two and having those data sets available to you on a click of a button, you click and then you get the report coming from both, from Agile and Waterfall, and get those reports nicely shown and prepped for your status meetings. Increase project quality, increase project throughput. That's something that you would be able to do by driving better decision making, by driving some of the decisions based on the data that is combined from Agile and PPM, by not spending time on figuring out the truth from Agile and figuring out the truth from PPM and how you can look at it together. So you can increase your PMO throughput quite a bit. Combine PPM and Agile metrics, project operation structure, and yet flexibility to our teams. So what I was talking about the action. So the first thing, the thing that we need to do, and I believe that action is the senior to everything. And in this case, action is the most fundamental principle for Agile. So basically, what's the principle? I mean, we can remember the manifesto is, but basically, you need to start doing things before you actually get, every single requirement in place. You just start doing things, and in order to start doing this, you're actually doing the action. The action comes first. So action is the first thing you do. Action is healthy. Action is necessary. There's a little sales thing. So we are here obviously doing these presentations, these webinars, and you must think, these guys are going to be selling us something. Of course we are. Of course we are, because this is our business to show some of the things that we know and show some of the things that we're very good at, and we're ready to share this information with everybody else for a small fee. Anyway, I know Daniel will be able to address any of those salesy type of questions. But if anything comes to mind as far as Agile and Waterfall thought leadership, feel free to jump in. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time answering some of the questions that came in through emails, and we'll open the microphone for everybody else to ask any questions. All right. So PMO roles in agile environment. So someone asked the question, what are the PMO roles in an agile environment? So basically, you can obviously bring up, and there are some questions about the Scrum Masters too, Scrum Masters versus project managers. How do we make everyone everyone who is a project manager, make them Scrum Master? Actually, was at the we're conducting speaking at the Barcelona and PMI Global Congress in Europe, and I was co-speaking, co-presenting with another fellow Jordi. So Taxiero. So he's basically, his point was, you can call this person anything. You can call this person anything. And it doesn't matter how you call this person. It doesn't matter how you call these roles. So there's chain of command from the business side, understanding the PMO, the budget, understanding who's responsible, who is in charge from the business side of this project, and then you can build your teams and build your built environments, and you can call them anything. You can call them project managers, you can call them Scrum Masters. It doesn't matter. Truly, I do believe it doesn't really matter. So you can keep them as project managers, you can call them project Scrum Masters, and the point is that you have to have it fixed and outline what's the process, how they report, what kind of data they should put in, and then that would give you the value. And how you call them, it doesn't really matter. How Agile would work in non-IT, non-commercial projects. That's we see there's a lot of interest in how can we get the Agile frameworks into the business projects and to non-IT projects. So by far the most adoption was within the IT projects, obviously. There's some movements on the non-IT projects and non-commercial projects. Honestly, I would not be the expert, and I would make more research on that and probably come back. I know exactly who actually asked this question, so we'll probably follow up on that separately. What percentage of large projects do you estimate are actually being undertaken in a blended waterfall agile mode? So large projects, I haven't seen any single one large project that is done purely in agile. And in fact, the survey that we did in the beginning of this webinar, it just showed that there was zero responses who said we're doing agile. So most of them, first of all, most of them are blended, 70%, right? Especially large projects, because they have a pretty heavy business components like, budgets and approvals, vendor selections, and things like that are very tough to put on the agile frame. However, the agile framework, and I start seeing a lot of sprint zero or sprint before you actually start any sprints, or sprint planning, sprints. So sprints before sprints. You can see some of this terminology showing up on the early stages of the project before the actual sprints are coming in. But they are really, another interpretation of putting some things done before you actually start getting into the iterations of the project execution based on Agile. So as far as large projects, none of them are purely Agile. They're all either Waterfall or Waterfall and Agile blended. Definition of large project as per our own discretion, or any industry benchmarks you may be aware of. I have, this is not related to Agile or anything, but I've seen that, and that depends on the organization size. In the Fortune, lower number of companies, I guess, I've seen if the project is less than 1 million, that project would not be considered as a big project. So over 1 million budget is probably a large project. So that's what I can recall from my experience with Fortune 5, Fortune 50, Fortune 100, Fortune 500. And again, the smaller the company, this concept is kind of sizing down based on the budget. How can a PMO embrace both Agile and Waterfall? Less experience with both, acknowledgement different approaches needed from them. That's basically, the way you would embrace it is saying that you guys can work on that Agile tool that is tailored to Agile process. We're going to take this information and incorporate it into our PMO data model. So that's basically a win-win for everybody in this case. With the project manager responsible for waterfall projects, make a good Scrum Master. So yeah, that's relevant to the first question about the PMO roles in Agile environment. So I've seen project managers are doing the Scrum Master work. I've seen Scrum Master work and doing project managers work. So it's basically the same thing. And then in some cases the Scrum Master is not as regarded title as a project manager. So I would probably stick to project management titles because they're more standardized. It's harder to get PMP certified as opposed to be a Scrum Master. Scrum Master is like a couple days class, and then you become a Scrum Master. At least it's harder to get a PMP. So if I would be PMO, I would stick to more complex certifications that would kind of allow people to be more skilled in the way they in their career. What tools can be used to manage an Agile project? I named quite a bit of them. You can look up on there's just hundreds of them right now. So most obvious ones are Agile tools like I don't want to call names because first of all I'm not tied to any of these companies, but the top three that comes to mind: Jira, TFS, Pivotal Tracker, Trello, version 1. The list is on now. Actually, I have 3 slides. I'm going to scan through quickly. What is meant by blending two, or do I treat a particular project traditionally handle Agile work as it is simply a task and create the requirement, user stories, and enters into TFS. So yeah, there's an example from the TFS Team Foundation server or the Visual Studio Online. So in the larger projects where you have insert of the Agile work, you may create a schedule with all the timelines. You may have a section where development is going on or the testing is going on, and you can create those sprints into this section of the plan and keep it there. There's a number of integrations that can be done, so you don't have to actually put manually anything in there. So you can have that integration to grab those items from the Agile system and put it in the right sections in your timeline on the project schedule. So that's very much doable, and I've seen people doing that. Another question: we want to move a blended environment. One question would be how well does the business adapt to the Agile approach? Actually, the business is very much in favor of the way it's been progressed, because it's easy to prove that Agile is actually saving business a lot of money. So business is kind of, from the ROI, from the simple ROI perspective, business is kind of getting it, right? I get it, but at the same time, business would still want to understand the question: how well are we doing as far as budget? How well are we doing as far as timeline? How well are we doing as far as the deliverables and etc. So the business is getting it. I would say there's no like resistance or anything. It's already known that Agile is there and business is ready for it. I'm not quite sure, if they're adopting it well or not well. I would say, if you ask this question without the last part, how well does the business adopt and adapt, period. So if your change management process is well organized, then you can adjust your organization, or adjust the way of business thinking in terms of agile, or at least in terms of blend of agile and waterfall. Then you have a better chance of business to adopt and adapt to the new approach. Well, this is actually a very good question. Thank you so much. We have 7 minutes left. I'm just. I said there was a question about 7 minutes. Like, are there any? I'm gonna skip some questions. I'm sorry about that, and we'll have to come back to you separately. Are there any specific techniques for managing testing with Agile that you have come up with? How do you propose time requirements to test cases? So Agile. Agile. This is purely Agile question. As you know, that there's a different Agile flavors, different Agile methodologies, like a Kanban, for example. So then, when you work on the Kanban and features, you can have the whole life cycle of the feature and storage to go through this process of coding and deploying, and then verifying and testing and UAT, and then deploy to production. So you can build this process in place, and you can map out all the features and test cases, and have those aligned with your requirements, and have the requirements of metadata that is tied to those test cases. So in this case, you would be able to pull the list of requirements, understand how many bugs and features are still in progress, are still in new or completed for your requirements. So some of the Agile tools, they're doing it very, very well, and you should look at some of the larger Agile players that can provide you with a greater detail on that. Maybe one question from here. What should be a frequency of sprints? Which version of Agile do you recommend? What are decisions criteria to determine when to use Waterfall and when to use Agile? So, quick question about the different Agile frameworks, different Agile methodologies. As long as the data model is mathematically allowing you to aggregate the information, it's basically complete, and most of the tools that you'll be, if you use the tool will not allow you will not allow you to have incomplete model. So you would have to use the tool, and then the tool will allow you to roll up. Which method you're using, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. So you can use Scrum, Kanban, whatever you want. If the data model is complete, then you can do it. Which version? Which should be frequency of sprints? It doesn't really matter in this case. 2. So 2 weeks, 1 month. I've seen quarterly sprints. So quarterly sprints looking more like waterfall projects, but it's up to you how you want to structure that. So anyway, Daniel, I'm done with my slides. Here's one slide saying how we can we keep this one. Maybe keep this one up here, and should we open the microphone?
Yeah, I just want to let everyone know that I did type this out, and I know that we have 4 minutes left in that scheduled hour, but we're gonna stay on here to make sure that we answer everyone's questions. So don't go anywhere. We have a whole lot of questions that I took some notes on, and let's go ahead and answer them. Before I do that, people are going to start dropping out in a couple minutes. Hope you guys don't, because we're going to be here to answer. Just to let you know, you can join our Facebook group. We just started it about a month and a half ago. We're somewhere around 100 members. Please help us grow this environment. We really want to help with the collaboration and growing the PPM community. So we always post interesting articles, thought leader videos. So go join that. You can like our Facebook page. We're all over social media. You can find us on Twitter. You can go to our website, www.trusteditgroup.com. You can see all the videos that we've been recording for the past year. You can see the list of services. You can check out our blog. And also keep an eye open for the emails, which many of you already know, as that's how you signed up for this. But we have monthly newsletters, monthly webinars, PPM events. We're speaking at conferences. So we really pride ourselves on leading by education, and that's how we are going to continue. So, excuse me, feel free to keep asking questions. All right, so some of the questions that I took note at. So Alex, question from Tika. She wanted to know, as a rule of thumb, how would you identify which projects goes directly to epics or which projects go to projects?
Well, the thing is that the question by itself telling me that that you probably don't have the clear process of how would you manage the agile environment. So in this case, you need to make this decision, up front, in advance, and understand which projects go to, if you decide to map, and combine and connect projects into projects or projects to epics. So that would drive your data underneath of those either projects or epics. So I hope that kind of clears the question, but I'm hearing myself, and probably the answer is not satisfactory. So the way you would understand whether this is project to project or project to epic, you basically putting the agile team in front of you and saying, okay, well, do we treat this as a project or we treat it as an epic? If you decide to treat it as a project, then you create a project, a second project, which would be one-to-one related. If you decide that these things are going to be epics for you, then you treat all of these epics as projects. So you got to make this decision as a PMO centrally, and this is probably a one-time decision versus ongoing decision that you have to make.
Great, thank you. Okay, let's get to the next question. Michelle wants to know, how do you reconcile budgeting at the project level with estimation at the sprint level?
Budgeting at the
project level with estimation at the sprint level.
Yeah, so the budgeting at the project level, you would need to understand what are the teams are going to be involved into this project, and by knowing how many teams are going to be involved, you would be able to bring. You also need to bring some SMEs, SMEs that will give you these numbers for your budget. They will also not just tell you the number, they will tell you why, what this number is combined of. And they will tell you this number is, XYZ for the project, which is the budget. It means that we're going to have 3 different teams working through 5 different sprints. And this is how the budget is coming up. And then those teams, you would likely know your velocities, which is how many stories you can turn around within the sprint. And then that would give you overall number of story points that you have according to your budget. So your budget would sometime, would actually equal to a certain story points, which you would split up between your teams and between your sprints. And this number is driven usually off of the velocity, which is the number of story points that particular team can turn around, can complete within one sprint. So that times number of sprints times number of teams will give you the equivalent of story points equal to the budget of the project. Okay?
Thank you. Okay, next one. Next one is from Gail. She wants to know, so going back to the PPM report slide, she wants to know The actual versus the plan assumes that all of your agile stories have been written, planned, and pointed. Um, and she wants to know, how do you account for it when it's not the case? Also, how do you handle the reporting with Kanban with Waterfall, since that does not plan sprints? So I guess we'll do. This is really a two-part question. So the first question is the PPM report slide. Your actual versus plan assumes that your agile stories have been written, planned, and pointed. How do you account for it when that's not the case?
Well, this is a good question. Thanks for that. Basically, what you're saying is that you have the open checkbook from your business, which is saying, well, you know what, we don't know how much more work will it take. Therefore, we are approving this situation to go on like this with this particular unknown of the scope of the project, and we're gonna keep the open book. And we unfortunately we would not have any, or very poor visibility ahead of us. And regardless of how well we try to bring the PPM methodology over here, it's not gonna reveal the future for us. I mean, we cannot bring any SMEs. We cannot really define how much longer it will take. So if that's the case, even hypothetically, if we cannot say that, well, it's probably going to take us, X amount of sprints, X amount of stories, even if we don't know what they are, but we can project, and based on that projection, we can come up with an actual versus plan. So, but you have to put some of the assumptions in place, and that would give you some of the numbers, so which would allow you to calculate some of the present value and actual value and the earned value metrics. So if you know how much total, if you know that overall it's going to be 1,000 story points, and you know that at this particular time you have completed XYZ, and you know that you spent over 30% of your time, that's going to give you a consistent way of calculating the earned value.
Thanks. And the second part to that is, how do you handle reporting Kanban with Waterfall, since that does not plan sprints?
So in this case, that the data model that we talked about, and let me go back here. So for example, this data model just looks different. Whatever is under version in this case, whatever the methods of reporting under the version or under the epic. Yeah. Let me go back a little bit. Here. Here. So whatever so instead of doing it by sprint, you would put it into the process of these phases or stages that the stories are going through. So this data model under the feature, under this third layer, the data model here, under the third layer, which is storage and sprints here, this data model is going to be different. So it's not going to change. It's not going to change the way you would map it at the project level or at the epic level or at the feature level, version level. It's not going to change that process. Okay, so under that, it could be, as I said, it could be different methodology, and that's fine. It's just going to be different data model underneath, and as you can see, the way we link it. We link it at this level. We don't link it at the story level or the sprint level. We link it to the PPM at this higher level, and it doesn't really, it doesn't change the integrated data model when you go lower than the feature or version. Okay. I hope I'm answered the question the best I could. All right.
Yeah, great. Okay, so We had a question coming in from Jim. Jim wanted to know, so since DevOps and continuous deployment is becoming popular, can you explain how that could be integrated into the PPM Agile model?
So I would say here, this is this example was here, the versions. So in continuous release cycles, each release become a project. So for each release, you would come up with the budget, you would come up with the X amount of story points that X amount of backlog, and on average, you would say each story is the 10 story points, and then you come up with the average number of story points per release, and you can come up with some budgets, you can come up with some timelines, how many sprints it will take, and you can do some PPM classic planning for your continuous releases, and each release becomes a project. And you may actually, as you can see on the left side, you can combine some of these projects into more like a products, right, or the applications. So you may have another link over here between projects and programs, understanding, okay, so maybe I can have my bigger application, and then I have projects which are releases, and you can have them ongoing one by one. So you can roll up overall program progress and see, how many rare versions and how much time and how much actuals have been incurred, by these versions, etc. All right.
Great. And then a second part to Jim's question, he asked another one. He wanted to know, have you ever seen EVM used in Agile project monitoring and reporting?
I've seen attempts to use it. I wouldn't say that these attempts were dramatically successful. And the reason is because there's the earned values is kind of mostly attached to a waterfall projects, and this is not technology challenge. This is really conceptual and people challenge. People think about waterfall when they think about the earned value. So I haven't seen that much incorporated in Agile, but and for large projects that I've been involved into, we definitely use some metrics coming from Agile environments that participate in the earned value calculations for the waterfall projects, which is a part of this waterfall project is Agile component, which is pure development and testing. So these metrics for the development and testing are coming into the waterfall project and participate in the earned value metric. So
thanks.
Yeah.
We had a question from Ron that he wanted to know, in one of the slides that you have, how does the use of points in Agile translate to hours in PPM?
Well, it doesn't break down further than the sprint and the team. So consider the team, right? You have 5 people, and the sprint is 1 week, right? 1 week, each person works, 40 hours a week, right? 40 hours times 5, you got 200 hours, right? You get 200 hours per your sprint. So you on the PPM, you have all of them assigned for this week for 40 hours each on that sprint. And if you have a breakdown by sprint, by story, then you can break it down by story if you really want to get to that level in the PPM, which I don't recommend to do, and keep that level of granularity in Agile tool. So that's how you translate the story points into hours. So basically, at some point, you can come up with the ratio between or index that will allow you to calculate how much time a single story point will cost you. So if someone says this is 3 points, that you know that it's an average going to be X amount of hours based on the historical data. Because you have actuals and you know the stories that are completed and you know the teams that are working on it. So you know exactly how much time was spent per story. And then that's how you make this translation between story points and work hours. Make sense?
Thanks. Okay, last person over here is Frank. Frank wanted to know, he would like to better understand how the output holistic reporting data set is built. He said that he can't find a way to come up with the actual versus plan values that are shown.
Well, Frank, thanks for the question. This is there's certain inputs that you need to use for this actual versus plan. Okay, so first of all, you need to understand. So what is the actual versus plan? First of all, let's break it down. The actual is basically easy. How many completed stories you have? Okay, so you have, in this case, completed. And by the way, this math over here may not work. I mean, if that was the question, but this math may not necessarily work because first of all, you don't know the timeline, you don't know the start and finish date, and that would drive this actual versus plan value. So I put these numbers without the calculation, but in this case, the 87% should come from completed story points, which is 617, divided by, and that's the number that is not here, and that's the number is supposed to tell us how many story points we should have been completed by now based on our timeline. And assuming that we have evenly distributed all the stories on the timeline, and let's say we evenly distribute the stories, and let's say we're halfway there, exactly halfway there, right? Let's say we have 2 weeks, the entire thing, this entire version 1.1 is, let's say it's 2 weeks, and then 117 story points have been completed within the first week, and we're halfway there, which means that if we have the total story points 1,372, if we're halfway there, and if we're assuming that these stories are evenly distributed on the timeline, so every day we should be completing X amount of story points, every day the same amount of time. Which in real life may not be the case. You may have a soft start, maybe accelerated development, and then winding down the development. But let's assume that this is evenly distributed, which means that from the entire total story points, which is 1372, divided by half, right? And in this case, that would be 600. Help out here, 600 and. 86, right? 686. So 617, which is actual, divided by 668, would give us the 87, which should give us 87%, which may not be true mathematically because I actually didn't this particular question. I'm doing it right now on the fly here, but it's telling us that we actually completed less than we should have been completed. We should have been completed exactly half of this total story points. Okay? And that's how you come up with the actual versus plan. Frank, please speak up. Am my answer satisfactory? I just want to know that.
So Frank's not going to be able to speak up because I actually have all the attendees that are muted. But you know what? We still have, I'm looking at the attendee list. We still have 30 people still in the room. So we're about to get really crazy over here, and I'm about to unmute everyone. So if you don't want us to hear what you're doing, I would recommend to mute your lines. But I'm going to open it up for everyone. So go ahead and answer any questions. We have this time here. We have this time just for you guys. So I'm about to unmute you right now. So everyone's unmuted, and let me know if you have any questions. Now's the time. We've had a lot of good chat going on, so I really appreciate it.
I
Thank
see.
you.
I see some of the folks are who dialed in muted and cannot unmute them. Maybe the people muted themselves.
Yeah.
I'm just reading through. Be interested to see the results of the question.
Can I ask a question?
Yes,
Sure.
please.
Yeah. So
Who is it speaking,
during
by the way?
the presentation, there was some comment there. PMP takes effort and time to get certification, but the Scrum, a couple of days training is good enough to get, I think, certification there. So could you elaborate a little bit more? I got the PMP certification, but I'm interested in going to Scrum Master certification. So any advice to how much effort and time required?
I'll tell you, it took me 2 days worth of 2 full days training, and you can look up. There are several organizations that are issuing the Scrum Master certification, and you can find the one in your neighborhood. It took me 2 days to do the training and get certified. So.
Okay. So if you have a PMP background, it's easier to get Scrum Master certification.
It has nothing to do with the PMP background, to be honest with you. I mean,
okay.
Yeah, it would probably be easier because you would understand, the nature of and the agile kind of project management. So there's some similarities, but it would not really give you any advantage, to be honest with you.
Okay.
So,
thank you.
Sure, no problem. Thank you for the question.
Hi, this is Jim.
Hey, Jim, how are you? Thanks so much for all your comments. We appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. I really enjoyed what you've done. Quick question. The Jira seems to, from your chart, seems incredibly popular. You had a few other ones. If someone was going to have to get into that software, do you think Jira or Team Server Foundation would be better on one's resume for knowledge?
So, if based on the fact that we're a Microsoft PPM Gold partner, right? my official answer is definitely TFS and definitely or Visual Studio Online. And in this case, I do recognize the value of other tools like Jira, and I can't really make the recommendation because it really depends on what you're looking for and what other tools you're using. There's a understanding that the integration and links between the Microsoft tools are better than the links between Microsoft and non-Microsoft tools. So as far as being a partner with Microsoft, I would definitely recommend Microsoft. But I've seen the successful Jira implementations too. So in this case, you should do your due diligence and investigate several solutions and see which one would work best for you.
Thanks for that honest answer. It seems like Microsoft likes to buy out the leading companies, like when they bought out Grain Plains software company. So I bet a year from now they'll own Atlassian because Jira is taking the lion's share of the marketplace right now in the Agile world. That's just a comment. Hey, thank you guys.
Yeah, what I can tell you that Microsoft has a roadmap of the future, of the PPM, and Agile takes a very big place in that roadmap. So we should expect new Agile capabilities coming from Microsoft. That's definitely on the roadmap for Microsoft, and that's that's a news. I mean, we don't know when, but it's definitely coming up in somewhere short term.
Yeah, thanks. If there's no question pending, I got another quick follow-up. Since there is such a poor, well, actually a lack of ability to see where you are with actuals, I'm a big proponent of GoLRAT's critical chain project management, and project buffers are such a great way to see if you're in trouble for schedule or cost. Do you know of any Microsoft partner that is trying to integrate critical chain project management in an agile model?
Well, there are a few partners that are working with the at a comprehensive level, integrating Agile and PPM, and one of them we are talking to right now. There are the critical path and Agile. I haven't.
Correction, critical chain. It's a lot different. Critical path is incorporated in critical chain, but critical chain includes the resource constraint amongst multiple projects.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the clarification. We have done some of what you just said, not in a way that you can resolve the critical chain like in a very simplistic and prompt manner. What you can achieve, and we do this in some of our Agile presentations, when you can come up with the resource management, and every time you assign your resources on your Agile environment, this gets reflected on your PPM and gets blended with other assignments on the PPM side, where you can use the resource capacity planning capabilities of your PPM, which would already include some of the Agile, not some of them, but all of the Agile assignments. So this is where you can run your resource management capabilities. You use your resource management capabilities of the PPM when it pertains to the critical chain management, including the schedule management, including risks and issues management, including all other project management disciplines.
I've seen that. That's a good answer, actually. I've seen that modeled or shown. One of the problems, though, is that if you're looking for introducing new projects into a pipeline and you want to know staggering-wise without having to go in manually to see if you have the resources for each project that you're trying to work on, that an automated staggering suggestion by comparing the constrained resource amongst multiple projects is what critical chain offers. And there's a number of companies that already do that with standalone products, but I haven't seen any of them do it with PPM yet. ProChain, is an obvious example, or Concerto Web. Those are companies, and even Adato, a German company, has the ability to do that. But it would be really wonderful to see somebody have that for the PPM world, because then you can monitor your buffers for schedule and cost to see if you're in trouble without getting into the micro calculation on actual plan dates and such. So there is a lot of value if somebody was to pursue that.
We used a particular project server or project online configuration when you do the capital planning in terms of Agile. You do the epic, basically you translate your capital project portfolio into the either epics or versions or releases planning, and each release on average you would understand how many teams and what are the teams and what the size of those teams, which would ultimately will give you the resource demand for those demanded projects. So in this case, you would do this planning or do this staggering resource capacity planning based on these first two layers on the picture I was showing. The first two layers of the Agile, which is project, epic, or feature, where you don't have to get down to the story level, but you can understand how many sprints and teams you need to involve into getting these epics, these initiatives completed. So that's another way of looking at what you just described from the agile perspective versus from classic project planning perspective.
Okay. Hey, thank you.
Thanks. That was I enjoyed this exchange of this conversation. Thank you for asking the question.
Thanks, Jim.
All right, we're halfway. We're half an hour over, and we still have 21 people. I mean, I don't know if they just forgot to hang up or listening to the call. But anyway, thanks anyone. Yeah, I see some people still replying. Yeah, we're still here. Okay, so well, again, thanks so much everyone for dialing in, for listening to our webinar. We're very excited for you expressing the interest and asking, tough and good questions. Very, very much appreciate that. Well, thanks, you guys are great. Yeah, well, thank you for saying that. Means a lot to us. The feedback is very important. I do encourage you guys to actually say something that we would change in our webinars in the future. So please, the constructive feedback is even more valuable. So please let us know if we need to do something different, and we will definitely adjust and make sure the next time we deliver the content, we listen to you and provide the best content we can. Okay. All right. Dan, anything else you'd like to add?
Nothing in particular other than what wasn't said. I think I heard someone take their phone off of mute. Am I just hearing things, or does someone have a question? No. Okay. So, well, if there's no other questions, if no one speaks up in the next couple seconds, we're gonna end the webinar.
Yeah, I'm going to put the link to our Facebook page on the chat. If there's please go ahead and
like our page.
Like our page, yeah. And we can actually transition this series of questions to our group over there, and our group and the group and we have the group, right? What's the group name?
PPM Success. We actually we posted that link in the chat. It'd be good to post it again in case anyone wants it. And we had a couple people join, so thanks. We appreciate that.
All right, gentlemen. Again, thanks for being here. We will see you next time in a month. Enjoy the summer and well, use the sunscreen. I guess that's on my list of things. All right, thanks everyone. Again, thanks for joining. You're great, and we'll see you later.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.